May I have your attention for a very important public service announcement? We are taking over the internet, and the United States champion of word wrestling entertainment has returned for another edition of the Pocket Locker podcast. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. So good to see you all here. What's up, Christian Jensen? Thank you so much for being the first in the chat. Spooky Bet here. Thanks for coming through the test streams and the technical supports and all of that. We're gonna go ahead and get right into it, folks. It's happening. It's happening. We talk about this nation being headed towards a civil war. I often say a civil war is not necessary when a civil divorce will do. Bye, Felicia. So long, sayonara. See you next time. It's not you, it's me. I just really think we should see other people. Y'all, the civil divorce is happening, minus the civil part. But white America has decided to go its own way. And I think we're going to be seeing more of this. But for those of you that have not heard, there's a new city called St. George. It's breaking off from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's quite a story. It's quite a headline. I want to send a shout out to Pragmatic Crystal, the great all-time super mod. Many of y'all know from the YouTubes. For making me aware of this story, followed up on it, and I've got a couple pieces to share with y'all. We're going to start with Roland Martin. We're going to kind of take a look at widely varying perspectives on this. Let's put it that way. Let's go ahead and get started rolling.
Or guess what? In Louisiana, the state Supreme Court there is allowing a largely white community to break apart and separate the city of Baton Rouge to create their own city. This has been a 6-year effort by folks there. On Friday, the Supreme Court granted the formation of the predominantly white city of St. George, which will be separate from Baton Rouge. The ruling is sparking concerns about segregation. Activist Gary Chambers posted a video talking about this here. He joins us now from Baton Rouge. Gary, glad to have you here.
Good to see you, Roland.
You made clear, Gary, that this was a very organized effort by a handful of people with a lot of money to achieve the creation of their own city. Walk folks through how this happened.
So, Roland, we have a man named Norman Browning who organizes a group of about 10 people that decide they want a new school district because they don't want their kids to go to the schools of Baton Rouge. Keep in mind, Baton Rouge is the city that had the longest desegregation lawsuit in America. We didn't finish that lawsuit until the 90s. And so when you look at the conversation around people wanting a new school district, these are people who ultimately don't want their kids to go to school with Black kids. Currently, the school district in Baton Rouge is 80% Black, even though the city is 56% Black. So white parents in Baton Rouge right now, for the most part, do not send their kids to public schools in Baton Rouge. As a result of not getting.
All right, so this is something we should pause to just think about. Let's get the lay of the land, what's going on there locally, and then think about how this plays out in the wider picture. Damn, y'all, it's crazy, but what he's talking about is the school district. He said the area we're talking about, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, about 60 something percent African American, but the school system about 80 something percent African American, right? Saying that most white people don't send their kids to the public schools. You know, this is an issue. And it becomes an issue with charter schools and all of this type of stuff, because all of those type of things take on a different meaning when you talk about urban education reform. Sometimes you have similar things when you talk about rural education reform, but this becomes very different than what the overall picture is. And largely this is why, because people that have the means to send their kids elsewhere, and the public schools end up undersupported and underfunded. So you have that as an issue there, and I talk about this all the time. Part of the way our system is set up, with essentially people of color getting the worst of everything, left to the worst neighborhoods, left to the worst schools, we end up getting what we call de facto segregation, which happens when people with means sort of leave urban communities, they leave behind people of color. They end up at places of work that are predominantly white, if not all white, schools that are predominantly white, if not all white, towns that are predominantly white, if not all white, places of worship that are predominantly white, if not all white. And I sometimes joke that, you know, that's why they tell you that racism has gotten so much better, and they tell you racism isn't a problem because ain't no damn people of color where they live, so they don't have no racial issues. But of course I kid, and when we really look into it, we sort of see the racial motivations behind all of it, you know. So let's let them continue.
That school district, these folks then decided to try to start a city. They failed the first time because the city was, I think at that time, going to be 60% white. They went back, cut out black neighborhoods, cut out black.
Let's get some of his numbers.
As a result of not getting that school district.
Wait, I want to go back a little further.
Currently, the school district in Baton Rouge is 80% black, even though the city is 56% black. So, all
right, so he claiming that, and look, it's not a math class, but we're gonna go with these rough estimates. School districts about 80% black, even though the area is about 56%. But that's a huge disparity, y'all.
White parents in Baton Rouge right now, for the most part, do not send their kids to public schools in Baton Rouge. As a result of not getting that school district, these folks then decided to try to start a city. They failed the first time because the city was, I think at that time, going to be 60% white. They went back, cut out black neighborhoods, cut out black apartment complexes, made the municipality smaller, put it back on the ballot, and got it passed by a vote of 17,000 people. The vote of 17,000 now impacts 400,000 people who live in East Baton Rouge Parish, because of the general fund that's $1 billion of city parish money. 300 million of that is not dedicated. And they're going to take away $48 million of resources from the general fund in order to create this new municipality. So I don't really care if they go off and segregate themselves, but I do care that we've paid into the fortunes of that portion of town for the last 50 years. And to say that you're going to start a new community and then we owe you money for that community, well, we've been paying a whole lot for a long time, and we want our portion to be paid for if you're going to get it.
So this is really interesting. And like, y'all, this is just crazy. Like, literally trying to start a new school district, being like, nah, you're not getting that. Oh, sorry, we're gonna start a new town. So I think this is gonna be happening more places. I think like so much of our current politics, where we see things break down at the state level and they end up using copy pasta legislation. They just take the legislation over here, change the states, change the the ordinance numbers and all of that, and we end up getting like copy and pasted legislation. I think a lot of other communities are going to see this. And also, it's kind of funny. I wish like my dad was here or just more of an old head, especially somebody that knows the history of like their state, because it feels like, at least for me, like this has got to be the history of so many towns. Maybe not recently, right? But when you look at a lot of these towns and you go to a lot of these places, right? First off, you just have the overall ways in which civil unrest and social change and social conflict is what tended to bolster really like the creation of a lot of these suburbs to begin with, and certainly the increase in the suburbs because people were trying to escape the city, and a lot of that was gentrification. Then you see where a lot of these small little hamlets and stuff have popped up over time around cities, and it's almost like people fled to those communities as well. So maybe not an hour 30-40 minutes away, but just 5-10 miles, outside of the city boundaries, right? And that's what it's like when you drive through a lot of America. um you drive through sort of these diverse neighborhoods in the heart of the city, but you get towards the outskirts and just a few minutes outside, and all of a sudden everything changes. Um, and then you even have the sort of re-gentrification and urban renewal and all this type of stuff where people actually come back to the cities and the urban centers, but they tend to pick out certain neighborhoods, get rid of plight housing, get rid of the hood, get rid of the ghetto, get rid of the projects, get rid of the high rises, and bring in new housing, right? And usually they price out the communities that were there. And so then you end up sort of getting segregated, gentrified communities within the cities, right? So I think what's hitting me right now is, yeah, of course, we're gonna we're gonna see this current moment and be like, this is ridiculous, this is outrageous. And it is, but we have to recognize that it's a long history and a long tradition of this, y'all. Um, it really, it really challenged us with the question of, do we really want to live together? And I mean that sincerely, and I don't know what the answer is, or I'm afraid to guess, right? You know what I'm saying? They say don't ask questions you don't want the answer to, right? I will be afraid to poll most of America because the truth is, as especially as an American of color, I feel like everything in America is racially charged. Every situation in America we see racially. I don't know if this makes sense. I imagine it's the same way other places, but it hits different here. What do I mean by that? So let's take like Switzerland, right? Like, let me be clear. I think anti-blackness is universal. It's racism everywhere, and that racism always manifests itself as anti-blackness. So there's nowhere I think I can go where I'm not gonna experience racism. So let me be clear. I don't want to tell no stories and tell no tales and somebody walk away talking about some Jay said he went so and so and it wasn't that racist or it was all good or whatever. No, I'm not saying that. But it is different. And so like I went to Switzerland, I was in this real remote village up in the Alps. There's no black people around, y'all. None. Black people just don't be there. And it's funny, like when you go out in the streets and shit, people would look at you like, God damn, we ain't never seen a black person around here. They just look at me like you could tell by the way they looked at you. But it hit different. Like it was kind of like, oh, we'll never see black people around here. And that's cool. Like, it's cool to see. It's cool. Like, it's cool that you're here. Like, there was a warmth to it, like almost like an excitement. And people largely left me alone. Like, people wasn't walking up, saying nothing or doing nothing weird. You could just tell, you could look around, you ain't really gonna see no other brothers up in here, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like people were warm, everybody was cordial, it was real nice, it was fine. Like when you're in America, everything, the air is thick with racial tension, but it ain't all good. There's like a real sense of strife and conflict that's kind of always present, and it feels like everything is marked racially. Like we always notice the race of people, and we treat things like it's a zero-sum game. Give you an example, like if you're in say like the East Ward of Newark. I'm gonna take it away from black and white for a second. It's one of the most concentrated places of Brazilian and Portuguese people in the world. And it's like more Portuguese people in East Ward probably than anywhere other than probably Portugal. So they go at it like cats and dogs, right? And everything is treated that way. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're a Portuguese kid and your teacher is Brazilian, you feel some type of way about that, you know? And it's not even to say they always are going at, they're always going at each other, but it's not to say, obviously, like, that doesn't mean like individuals always have hostility. They marry each other, people have families, people are good, people are friends, people are cool, but it's definitely a thing. And if the councilman, like the councilman's been Portuguese for a while because they've had the edge in the electorate, the Brazilian people feel some type of way about that. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how like America feels, but it feels like especially thick and filled with conflict when it comes to black people. So that's what we have to think about today. That's mostly what we're going to be thinking about today's show is, do we really want to live together? Because it really seems like a lot of times the answer is no. A lot of times the answer just seems like it's no.
So, what's interesting here, you also mentioned that you have a black mayor in Baton Rouge, and it's not like, Baton Rouge ain't Atlanta. It's not like there have been black mayors for the last 30 plus years.
No, she is the second black mayor
Gabby,
of
Logan,
Baton Rouge.
Jasper.
Kip Holden was the first black mayor of Baton Rouge. He was elected in 2004, took office in 2005. So when you put that into perspective, black folks have only been in leadership in this city for under 20 years, okay? So to tell us that the woes or the condition of this city are all the fault of the black leadership, and let's be clear, Roland, the council is majority white, majority conservative in Baton Rouge. It's a 12-member council, 7 white conservatives serve on the Metro Council here in Baton Rouge, and they approve or disapprove of all of the plans of the mayor. And so when we talk about the progress of a community, we have to talk about the inequities in the tale of two cities that have existed for long before Sharon Weston Broome was the mayor of Baton Rouge. We have to talk about how we've invested in South Baton Rouge, the portion of town that is segregating themselves away, and to the demise of North Baton Rouge, actually. And so if we don't have honest conversations about how we got here, then we can't have an honest conversation about how we move forward.
And this is, and again, this is just how American politics plays out overall. A lot of times people try to identify the leadership with the head of the executive branch, ignoring the fact that we have a 3-branch system, and oftentimes the limits of that executive. And you really see, quite frankly, the conservatives and their campaign of spite against marginalized people. Because let's be honest, like that's what it is. Like it just gets so annoying having to pretend that it's otherwise. Like that they've always been motivated by cruelty. And if you want to know what I really think, like they have a cruel worldview. They have a cruel philosophy, right? They're they're good Christians, right? Which is AKA cruel people. And the dynamics always work this way. So you'll have a black mayor, but they'll literally make sure that we have a system where that mayor's agency is very limited. Here in their case, it's because they've got the county board or the county commissioners, right? They're mostly majority conservatives, And this just plays out all over the place. So we know how this plays out. It's like places where you'll have a black or a Democratic governor, but most of the state house and the state senate is run by the conservatives. They literally make sure nothing gets done. Again, they carry on their campaigns of spite and marginalization. And then when shit goes bad, they blame the executive, they blame the black mayor, they blame the Democratic governor. I don't know if people realize this, that especially people that are like not American. But it's just very typical. It's very much how things are here overall. It's not, it's one of the aspects of the two-party system that people don't really talk about. We kind of talk about a two-party system as though, you know, your government at a particular level, the city, the state, or the federal government is going to be run by one party or the other, and there's this like tension and this push and pull between the two parties. That does happen, but really there's also this way, this like localized push and pull that they do within each of those levels of hierarchy. And it's why our system sucks and literally nothing gets done. Literally, it really is. And it's why it's so hard to change things in America. That's why this country's so regressive.
And the truth is, when people talk about this unity and why do we talk about race, this is why we talk about race, because people are literally segregating their children, segregating the city, and then taking away resources from our community. And to be clear, 50 years ago, when Black people were becoming the majority or growing in population in Baton Rouge, they changed us to a consolidated form of government, which was we won't just have a city, we'll have a city and a county. So Mayor Broom is the mayor of the city of Baton Rouge and the parish president of the parish of East Baton Rouge. And so we have a council that is convened that represents the entirety of the parish, but white communities continue to segregate themselves off when they realize that Black leadership is going to be in charge for the future of this community.
And this is another thing that can happen, right? Because remember, I just talked about how sometimes you go to the city and it feels like it's diverse and shit in the core, but then you get to the outskirts of the city or even just a few minutes out. And again, I'm not even speaking about Baton Rouge, Louisiana, because I don't really know Baton Rouge, Louisiana that well. I don't think I've ever been there, to be honest with you. But there's so many cities that people from pick a state, they could tell you because it's the same thing in their state. And so what happens is a lot of times that city is like the core of the county, but they make these counties and then it becomes like a mini federal system in the county. And basically even though the city is most of the county by population, it is most of the concentration, it'll be one city in the county, right? So then they could put the county commissioners and representatives and all the bureaucracy and the regulatory agencies and the police and all that type of power structure. They distribute basically totally disproportionately not consistent with the concentration that should really be for the city where the mass of people are. And it's just one of those things we've just come to accept about life in America. Like we know this, like we literally know that these county structures often exist with these shady motivations. They exist as like the associate deans of the government, like, you know, like middle management, middle bureaucracy. Nobody really knows what they do, right? Like, you know, and we just accept that. And we accept that, like, we live in these cities and that counties have all this oversight over the cities, and that the county leadership never looks like the city leadership, because then people leave the city, go to the surrounding towns and all of that, and then build up the county infrastructure in a way that marginalizes the people in the city. It's just the way it is.
I saw there was a state representative who's looking to have this Supreme Court decision reheard or try to have them do it again.
Oh,
President of the
yes,
city.
Terry. Yes. It goes to the landowners, the landlord system. Matter of fact, just like in the last few years, like since the pandemic, like in New Jersey, for instance, the state I'm from, they had to change the name of the county electoral people of trying to the stories about them. So they used to be called freeholders. Right now they're called like county commissioners or something. Most places they're called county commissioners, or and then you might have like a county executive, or you might have a county president. You might have like a town council or something like that, but they're basically like the council members for the town, for the county rather. So for the town, they're normally called like the city council, right? But for the county, and people don't know this, but New Jersey has like a bunch of different types of government organization structures for towns and counties, and they basically tried to equalize them. But anyway, the reason they had to get rid of that name freeholders is because it literally goes back to a time where those positions were reserved for landowners, for landowners, and yeah, it has like a really dark history to it. So they had to change the name.
The council, Lamont Cole, Mayor Pro Tem Lamont Cole, is challenging to have them rehear it. There are certain aspects that the justices did not consider. One of the things, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who is a conservative, wrote a dissenting opinion and said that this was a decision masquerading as a ruse of a decision, and said that that was a deficient argument put forth because they couldn't even prove that they were going to pay for the services of the city. They have.
All right, here, just real quick. So in 2020, the New Jersey Governor Murphy signed legislation to eliminate the title freeholder from public office. Sheila Oliver said, changing the title of freeholders, quote, freeholder, is long overdue. People know the term is offensive and refers to a time when only white male landowners could hold public office, said Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who serves as the commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs. As a former freeholder, I was fully aware that this title was not inclusive of African American women such as myself. History is constantly evolving, and our terminology needs to keep up with it to be more reflective of where we are as a society. So it's crazy, but like, literally, y'all, it's in the name of these county positions. and they literally, like, just yesterday, like pandemic times, y'all, was like, yeah, maybe, yeah, people are kind of right. And think about it, that shit would have never happened, probably if not because of George Floyd and all that other type of stuff, right? So literally, without racial upheaval, they still be calling these motherfuckers freeholders. It's a problem, y'all.
Proposed that it's going to cost them $47 million to run a city of 80,000 people, and they're going to privatize every aspect of the services of the city. They don't even have a plan for policing, Roland. They plan to just take the sheriff's department and just give them $4 million and hope that that covers the bill.
Wow. Questions from my...
Oh, I have some thoughts about that shit, y'all. Okay, first off, it shows you that they ain't got their shit together, right? And I'm gonna just say this, like, it's a lot of stuff when you get into this stuff, when folks is trying to be at their worst, they really don't have it together. They normally don't. And there's, like, most conservative things that are just so driven by an ideology of hate and white grievance. They just don't have it together because they're profoundly unserious people, right? And at the end of the day, like, we know this fascist movement we're dealing with, and we know there's one question that terrifies these people more than anything. That's why on this channel I insist on encouraging you to ask these people every chance you get. And look, it's a real simple question. It's not easy. Look, it's only 2 words, y'all. These people are pissing in their pants, shitting all over themselves, terrified of a 2-word question. Now what? That's the thing they never think through. They never think through the now what. When they get their way, what happens now? Cool. Trump lose the election. Y'all get to hang Mike Pence. You're gonna burn down the Capitol. You're gonna storm. You're gonna take over, install a little dictator. Okay, now what? What happens next? How the fuck does that shit help us? Right? Everything they want to do. Oh, cool, great. You cool. You know what? Let's get rid of these fucked up ass COVID mandates. The vaccine sucks. We're better off with ivermectin. Cool. All right, now great. Now a million plus motherfuckers have died. Now what? When y'all actually get the stupid shit that y'all are seeking, what happens next? They've never thought through that shit. They spent 50 years campaigning, taking over the Supreme Court, lying under oath, all so they could take away women's rights. They did, and they've done nothing but fucking backpedal and trip over themselves and have fucking havoc since. Why? Because they weren't prepared for the question of now what? Oh yeah, everybody just fucking hates you. That's now what? And so they're not prepared to run a city. And the funny thing that follows that line of thinking is they really don't care. They really don't care. They just want to get away from the Negroes, and they will figure the rest out later. Like they will literally figure the rest out later. The other thing that's funny is they're never willing to let go of public resources. You know, like, look, y'all got y'all money. You want to make your own little private town? Go ahead and make your own little private town. A lot of this conflict is because y'all still want access to public dollars and public infrastructure. But you see the intent with the county. They're like, look, we don't need a police department. We'll just have the sheriff. Something happened, we'll just call the sheriff. It's no big deal. Shows you they just put layers and layers of policing in place. But I wanna make something else clear to y'all. That is the thing we really should be thinking about with all of this. And it's just this little element of the policing. They don't care about policing. Because when it's just them, they don't think there's even a need for policing. This is one of the things that is one of the great stains on this country. I talked about being in Switzerland. Another thing I noticed about the era was in Switzerland, there was no police department. You spend whatever, I spent a good amount of time there, whatever it was, and did not see not a single police officer. There literally was no police department where we were. Nobody cared. Nobody was concerned about it. When you go to most places, like when you go out into the real white areas, y'all, the real areas with the exclusive housing and all that type of shit, and you know, $1 million plus property values and all of that, you don't see no cops out there. You rarely, once in a while, you'll see a lone officer just randomly meandering around, probably talking on their phone, eating a sandwich, chilling. Ain't no police out there. The intense policing that happens when we live together. But again, it just asks a question about how much do we really want to live together? Because really, when people are in their communities, they feel safe. They don't feel like police even need to be around. And that says something, because remember when these people are back in the blue and they're all about the security state and all that, that's for us. That's for brown folks. That's for people of color and marginalized groups. If they got to have a community of rich white folks to themselves, oh, they ain't worried about no policing. They ain't worried about no public safety. Nah, we all good. We got money and shit. We ain't worried about that.
Our panel, Greg Carr.
Thank you, Roland. It's always good to see you, brother Chambers. The way I understand it, and I know you know this history better than all of us, these white boys have done this earlier, I guess, with Central, outside of Baton Rouge, and I'm from Nashville, so I remember how they went municipal: Nashville, Davidson County, Atlanta, Fulton County, Jefferson County, Birmingham. My question is about how, what's the impact of us not getting involved in the political process? I know you've been doing that. You know, we all came to know you probably outside of Louisiana when you jumped on Connie there at the school board meeting. But, you know, what is it going to take for our people to understand? I remember the comedian Paul Mooney once said, you know, they want to move away from us now, but during slavery and Jim Crow, they wanted us all up under them in their beds, in their bedrooms, and the kitchens. But now that that's over, they want to get away. What is it going to take to trigger some kind of resurgence in our consciousness to get involved in what has been a long-term strategy for these kind of races, which is to get away from us as far as possible?
You know, I think that some of us had hoped that some people were better than they were, and the realities of today are making people have a wake-up call. I hope, that is my hope, that being able to see things that you and I and Roland and others have been talking about for years play out in real time, I think is a clarion call that many people are going to say, I didn't think they would go this far. They will go this far and further. They want to take as many rights from you as possible. Just today, there was a conversation about a bill in the state legislature in Louisiana that will make it a crime to have an abortion pill. That if you have an abortion pill, they're going to make it a controlled substance in the state of Louisiana. That if you have a person is found with pills that induce an abortion, that you would be considered to have a controlled substance in the state of Louisiana. These people will go to the pits of hell to strip your rights away from you in every aspect, whether you are a man, if you're a black man, black woman, or if you're a woman in general, they will go to the pits of hell to strip your rights away from you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Reese.
Mr. Chambers, it's all.
This is the thing we need to talk about. And I remember this headline from 2014. This is just 10 years ago, y'all. 3/4 of whites don't have any non-white friends. Just think about that. Just think about what that says. I get so sick of people trying to act like racism isn't still around. Oh, it's all good. We all hold hands and sing kumbaya. If you go into a neighborhood, it's just a melting pot of people. No. 75% of them motherfuckers don't have no black friends. None, not a one, not a single. They see us on TV. It's just like it was when I grow up. They see us on Cops. They see us on ESPN. That's their image of what black people are and what black people should be doing and what black culture is. Oh, in BET. That's who they think we are. We should be gang banging, slinging dope, pimping hoes, shooting ball, or just mainly being incarcerated for nefarious activity. And that's when they say the problem is with black culture, because that's what they think black culture is. That's all the black culture, because they don't know black people. And honestly, I'm gonna tell you something else too. It's the same reason that so many of the Christians that you see interact in atheist spaces call in with some crazy ass anti-trans shit. Why do they do that? Because they don't know any of them people, and they assume in this space, yeah, it might be atheist, but it's still largely predominantly like white folks, and maybe there's some soft ass allies in here, some of them lefties that they can trigger up in here, but they ain't worried that they're gonna run into like a real life trans person. So imagine they're surprised when Stephanie Helms is fucking call screening. But that's why they do that. They wouldn't be calling in like my pronouns are attack helicopter if they actually thought there was a chance that a super intelligent trans person was going to actually take their phone call. They wouldn't do that shit. They do that shit because they think they're going to be talking to some dumbass white boy who's going to let that shit slide. I'm just telling you how I really feel, y'all. They've come to expect that their poor behavior is acceptable because they don't really engage with marginalized people. So marginalized people are like an idea, a concept, some way out there shit because they don't really know folk.
Always good to see you out here on the front lines. My question, to your point about the composition of the leadership in Baton Rouge, can you explain how this new segregated city, does this just siphon off resources from a Black city while still keeping white overseers in place in Baton Rouge, or will this actually empower more Black residents to take back more power in the city and possibly change the composition of the way the leadership is structured right now?
So because we have a consolidated form of government and a gerrymandered map, we currently don't have the potential for Black leadership to be able to run the entirety of the community. The gerrymandered map is the problem right now. There's conversations to challenge that even in the courts to make sure that the city council gets a fair map in Louisiana, because every map that's been drawn in the state has been ruled unconstitutional, in my opinion. If you rule the congressional maps and the legislative maps to be unconstitutional, then you got to know that the city council maps in the blackest cities are unconstitutional as well.
All right, we're at 9:15. We're gonna go back to 9:15, but just to emphasize his point here. And he said they redrew the map to cut out Black neighborhoods and Black districts, because 60% wasn't white enough. they had to make sure it was all right because it's all white. But look at that. That is no kind of natural boundaries or drawing of a district. And this is one of the signs of gerrymandering is that districts and states, they just get, and counties and all this, they get these contorted jurisdictional lines, and it's all gerrymandering to control the representation. It's why most American they just don't make any sense. But they don't make any sense because they'll literally do shit like, oh yeah, see this neighborhood that's like literally right in the middle of all. I guarantee you that's brown people right there. I guarantee you it's brown people right all up in here. It has to be. It has to be because how else? What is this Swiss cheese we making here? You don't put naturally occurring gaps and holes in the center of jurisdictions like that. That don't make any sense. And then what are these weird cutouts? And then is it mostly this area, but then we're way over all up in here? We're all up in here till we get to the river. What kind of sense does that make? And why is this goes all the way to the highway, but this whole part we don't want this part. It don't, gang. I'm telling you, you can look at a map like that and be like, I know exactly where the Black and brown people live. I know exactly where they live. It's crazy, but that's what it's really like in America, yo.
These are unconstitutional as well. And so when you look at that, that's the challenge for us, that we have built these communities for the last 50 years with the tax dollars of Black folks that in the northern portion of the parish, seeing divestment in our communities. And now these people want to take their toys and go home. There's a new exit off the interstate that Mayor Sharon Weston Broome approved for the people that live in this portion of town. But you say that she hadn't done anything for your side of town. Folks in North Baton Rouge would challenge and say that we want more done in North Baton Rouge. And so we have seen the rise of that side of town by the expenses of all of us. And so what we are saying now is you can't then get resources from us and bleed us dry and then go and prosper with all that we built. And so we've got to have a position of protecting what is for the citizens of Baton Rouge. If they want to start their own city, start it from scratch. Y'all so damn bad.
Well,
I know that's right.
So it looked, the shenanigans continue.
They literally want a mostly Black city to foot the bill for their little enclave, even though they supposedly doing it. They big into that. They got all this goddamn money. They shouldn't need it. But yeah, they'd rather risk losing everything than live next door to a black or brown person. That's the truth. And it's something that I hate to say, but this is what the liberal side has to wrap their head around this. It's really, to me, I hate to say, but it's liberals that are mostly missing this. And I consider myself a liberal, but I'm just being honest. Mostly white liberals that are missing this. Why? Because the right, they always know what time it is. They listen. Racism, misogyny, bigotry, homophobia. That's their brand. They know who they hate. They hate everybody. They look. They even hate Muslims. They hate Jews. We know this. That's why they loving what's going on right now. Right wingers are like, yo, we can literally put some anti-Semitic shit on a college campus right now, free of charge, and the authorities and the media is gonna blame the left, and we could just further stoke conflict. Come on now, they know what time it is. Marginalized groups, oh, we been know what time it is. We know they hate us. We know that. We know that. Look, the incinerator and the dump, and you know the sewage, all the nasty shit in the city has to go somewhere. It always ends up in a black neighborhood. We know what time it is. Our schools are always underfunded. Our books is always 3 editions behind. We know what time it is. It really feels like it's the liberals who are literally convincing themselves that the game is about something different. like no, the game, no, it's different now. We differ on policies, and you know we've got to talk about our philosophies and our ideology. Not everything's about racism anymore. You know, it's like, wake up, y'all, wake up. The Civil War never stopped. They're literally like, let's all right, maybe, all right, so maybe we can't break off the Confederate States of America, but what if we just make our own cities? Like, yo, they literally, all right, you know what?
This is from the Daily Mail.
You know what? Why would I try to emphasize this point for y'all? I've got a much better person to help me make this point. You know who's gonna really help us understand what's going on, y'all? The perfect person to hear from in this situation right now. Come on, Tim Pool. Yeah, Tim Pool. You know that you know if I pull some Tim Pool up, you know it's about to be conservatives telling on themselves. Oh, we about to hear the quiet part all out loud, y'all. Come on, let's go.
This is from the Daily Mail. How Baton Rouge school, plagued by racial tensions and violence, drove military veteran to
also real quick. Shout out again to my homie PC Pragmatic Crystal, who put me on to this whole story. So thank you, PC.
Had successful campaign for wealthy white residents to form new city of St. George. The first thing I'd like to do is insult the person who wrote that headline, because it's overly verbose and doesn't really explain what the story is. The story's massive. Baton Rouge is effectively splitting into 2 cities over crime, with the wealthier suburb, which is predominantly white, St. George, becoming its own city. And this was as of a couple of days ago. The interesting thing is that
he already told on himself, but you know, he already hit it out the park with the Pine Creek logic here. So again, we just already get to hear the racist dog whistling. So there's all right. The theme, y'all, is going to be 2 themes: schools, crime. Okay, and it's always this way. The schools are bad. Again, why are the schools bad, y'all? The town is like 56% black. The schools are 80% black. They're complaining about the schools being bad, y'all. Why are the schools bad? I don't know. Could it be neglect of majority black school district and y'all pulling all your kids out and sending them to private schools? I don't know. Is it could maybe racism be the reason the schools are bad? And crime. And again, they already told you that they understand the judge, jury, and executioner, that situation, because they told you the majority white suburb that's much wealthier wants to split off. Yeah, and that's why the schools suck, and that's why there's a lot of crime. Yeah, poverty. Turns out if you just fucking take all the resources and dip to the local suburb and leave all the poor people behind, yeah, and times are gonna be kind of rough. So is it, but all right, let's go. Let's continue.
There are many people
Crime in
arguing that
schools,
by
we got it.
having this wealthy suburb break off, which is predominantly white, 70%, it is going to harm and leave behind black families. I am shocked that they would argue that make that racist argument. Black families in Baton Rouge don't need the white people to be there in order to succeed. I don't know why they would make that argument. But of course, they're claiming it's racist now that the people who live in this community voted for their own city. So what say you, panel?
Matt, how do you feel about this?
All right, so it's not racist for the predominantly white suburb to split off and make a new city, but it is racist to notice that the predominantly white people want to split off into their own city. And now what say you, panel of well-off white people?
It's not racist, it's rational.
Is it based, in fact?
It's very based, and there's a movement. I don't know about Louisiana, but in Texas, there's a movement to create new free cities that split off from places like Austin. And it's simply about taxes. It's about regulations. It's about zoning. It's about schools. It's about all the things that normal people care about. And my guess is that the Baton Rouge city government is slightly better than Portland, Oregon, but maybe not good enough if you're paying the taxes.
Holy shit. Oh, there's so much going on there. That was exhausting. Oh, he just did so much work right there. Oh. Cheers, y'all. I had to hit the whiskey again. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. He was doing so much. First off, I'm trying to tell y'all, this is what y'all see with the apologist. I'm so glad he said it's not racist, it's rational. Because that is what y'all deal with. We literally, I'm trying to show y'all where the setups are, where the traps are. When you deal with these bigots, when you deal with these fascists, you got to stop acting like they really want to have a serious philosophical conversation. What they want to do is they want to use the guise of rationality. These motherfuckers don't like rationality. What about that man says rationality to you? Let's not undress the man's entire background. But seriously, I'm so glad he said that, because again, it's just more of the made by Jim Bob. Give me an argument, bro. Bro, that's not an argument. Bro, facts don't care about your feelings. Can I have an argument? What's your argument? Do you have your argument? Okay. Racists want to hide behind arguments. I don't know why. I don't know why, y'all. I don't know why. I'm telling y'all, these racists are punks. They punk ass little bitches, and they don't really deserve a lot of credit for much. I don't understand. They're crazy. Bro, you are white, well paid, well resourced on a real platform. Bro, step it up, pound your chest, and just let out the racism. Just tell us you don't like black people. What is this? How it's rational? It's about policy. Like, bro, you can't say you don't like black people with your chest. You can't just give us a full throat like, I don't want to live in them poor Negroes. Just black community, nah. Like, oh, I just get so sick of them. Like, what? Like, just say it. Okay. Then the fool had the audacity, y'all. The audacity to say that Baton Baton Rouge, Louisiana is probably slightly better than Portland, Oregon. I can't. I just yo, he showed his whole ass with that one. That is literally just saying, aren't these white liberals just a bunch of niggers? Yo, he basically just literally just tell us that you think white liberals and niggas is just basically on the same tip. They're just basically the same thing. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Portland, Oregon. What's the fucking difference? Yo, white liberals, if you don't get the smugness, if you don't get the stain towards liberalness that was couched right there, that was a gem. That was a gem. And then of course the filler of the sandwich. We got the bullshit about rationality and it's not racism with the one bread, and then the bottom bread was the comparison to Portland, and in the middle we just got the typical white grievance listed. It's about policy and it's about crime and it's about regulations. It's about all the things that normal people, regular Americans, right? Kitchen table Americans. Again, read the normal American is an aggrieved white person to them. Like that's what the normal, that's what's normal to them. The normal person just doesn't want to be around Negroes and is just ready to start their own town. But they told you what I predicted earlier, which is that they anticipate this catching on like wildfire. They want to do similar things in Texas. They want to do similar things in these other places. They want to establish their free cities. Okay, gang, this is craziness. This is craziness. And this is the ugly, messy divorce happening. So for all of those people that wanted to sit it out and laugh at the talk of the Civil War or civil breakup and all that, bro, they just like they are with all their issues, they're telling you who they are, they're telling you what they want, and they're doing it. They're going about it. So take them seriously. They are who they say they are. Okay? They really don't want to live with us. They're done. They're done. And if they can't claw back the city government because there's too many black or brown people, then they're just gonna take their little enclaves and make them their own cities. You have to understand that this is the racism at the heart of so much of America. And honestly, it's the reason there's a really good chance that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States of America. Because people underestimate the power of whiteness and how much these people hate black people and how far they're willing to go, because that's their ultimate value. They don't care if Trump's a felon. They don't care if he's a sexual assaulter. They don't care if he's an insurrectionist. They don't care if he wants to be a dictator. They don't care if he's a fake Christian. Look, he will keep black and brown people in their place. That is what's important to them. He will make sure that the average white aggrieved Christian has power. That's all they care about. He will make sure that people acting out of that white grievance are not held accountable. That's what they care about. And you underestimate how important that is to white Americans. How much they love that, how much they need that, how much they feed off of that. They don't want it any other way. At the end of the day, sure, they may not want to bear the brunt of the most extreme positions. They may not want to put on a sheet and deal with the fallout of being identified as a Klan member. Okay, they may not want to tie up a gay kid and drag him around town on the back of their pickup truck, because all that seems a bit extreme and it's just messy to them. They don't want to get their hands dirty. But trust me, they are motivated by a desire for the finer things, just nice things, right? They just want a nice neighborhood and a nice job with a nice school. They go to a nice church. All of that is code for I don't want to be around black and brown people. These are the Caucasitarians, okay? We're going to talk and deal honestly about the Caucasitarians, okay? Some of y'all are just white people. That's cool. We ain't got no problems with that. It's these Caucasitarians, the white people that only do white people. They only do white people. School, work, play, church, grocery store, all that. It's only all right if it's all white. Caucasitarians. They're the problem.
So why wouldn't you vote with your feet? And why wouldn't you start a community that is actually going to care about basics? Like I want my trash picked up. I would love for my kids not to be transitioned in.
Hey, PC, thanks again for hooking us up with this. Thanks for letting me know this is going on. I really appreciate it.
In middle school, and I would love not to get shot.
Yeah. Baton Rouge is where there was
wait, hang on.
I
interrupt this. This is good to hear this.
That is actually going to care about vote with your feet. And why wouldn't you start a community that is actually going to care about basics? Like I want my trash picked up. I would love for my kids not to be transitioned in middle school. And I would love not to get shot.
Yeah.
Vote with your feet. Vote with your feet. You don't like them people. You don't like that DEI. You don't like that woke shit. Move if you have to. Succeed if you have to. Forget public service. The funny thing is they want schools and police and they trash picked up and all of this shit, but they're literally willing to just go out there and start a goddamn city before they even have a plan of how they're going to even do those things. And when it comes to doing those things, they want the cities they're succeeding from to pay for it. Interesting. Or I guess the county, they want that county money that the city's paying for. Let's be more accurate. I guess they're going to rely on county services. But again, like we talked about, the cities are what's funding those county services. But you just hear again the white grievance and the hatred. And again, like for people that's out there is hashtag not all white people, right? We're not trying to crap on all of you, but what we're trying to do is take time to reflect honestly about what's going on with these people. And so think about what they said. I want my trash picked up. Like, first off, the implication being that if you live in like a black run city, there will be no sanitation services or they'll be inadequate. Like just a total ridiculous claim. And the funny thing is when you see fall off in services, the reality is that fall off in services doesn't happen in white communities. I guarantee you go to wherever these people live, the trash is picked up, the streets are paved, everything's nice. Why? Because these are white neighborhoods with high property value. It's black communities that have a lack of cleanup and a lack of road maintenance and a lack of public services. It's the primary reason why so many people of color want to move out of the hood and want to move away from the neighborhoods. It's not because they don't want to be around their people. It's not because they don't love their culture. It's because they're tired of living in neglected communities. And in order to provide the best quality of life for themselves and their family, they need to move to neglected communities. They need to move out of neglected communities. So the audacity to act like the people in this uppity white community were struggling with sanitation is so fucking out of touch. then I don't want my kid to be transitioned in middle school. Boy. Just tell us what this is. Again, y'all, this is really just because that's happening. And I don't want to get shot. We want to succeed and start our own segregated city because I don't want my kids transitioned. I want my trash picked up, and I don't want to get shot. Because again, it's definitely not white people that love guns. You know, I've seen the statistics, and most of the registered firearms belong to black people. It's black people that are seen in magazines with firearms. It's black people who give firearms to their children. It's definitely black elected officials who send out Christmas cards where everyone, including the children, are holding assault rifles. It's definitely black people that are funding the multi-million-dollar National Rifle Association that continues to be one of the most powerful lobbying groups in America. It's definitely black people who literally assault fucking cans of beer with military-grade automatic weapons for that company sending one can of beer to a transfer. It's definitely black people who do that. Definitely the problem with guns and violence in this country. It's black people, black people, black people, black people. If you don't want to get a shot, avoid black people. We all know most mass shooters, black people. These are all facts, right? What? Oh, none of those things are facts. Whoops.
Baton Rouge is where there was a big BLM riot, and the case is still going on, where the police officer then sued the organizer for being like, you created a dangerous situation.
Wow.
There's a similar...
Imagine the cops. This is racism, y'all. The cops sued the BLM rioters because Black Lives Matter movement created a dangerous situation. Not police murdering black people. Police murdering black people, just y'all, it's a day that ends in Y, is it not? That's normal, okay? Just understand America. Understand who America fucking is, okay? Police murdering black people, that is normal, to be expected. That's the status quo. That's regular shit, okay? Organize, protest for black people's lives mattering, dangerous situation. Can't have it. Can't have it. Can't have it. Somebody might break a window. I know a black person just was murdered. Somebody might break a window. They might steal candy bars. Holy shit.
Was a similar effort in Atlanta to create, I think it's called Buckhead. And as far as I know, it's been voted on a couple times. It's never gone through. But again, there was this criticism that
unauthorized encampment. You know, as a university, we support our students' rights to free speech, but you cannot put a fucking tent on the goddamn lawn in front of the administration building. The fuck is wrong with these kids?
It's like all the wealthy white residents want to split off. I think that's an oversimplification to scare people against the concept, right? If you're living in an area and you guys are doing pretty well, regardless of race, and you think, hey, this city is being mismanaged, I don't want to sell my house. My house is in the good part. Why don't we split off? That makes sense for me. I think that it's sort of arrogant of cities that are being poorly managed to say, well, like, you guys have to go down with our ship. You're not allowed to leave. Otherwise, we'll label you racist. It's not race,
it's governance. It's failure of governance. It's a failure to do the basic things that you expect a city government to do.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
I mean, the thing is, you can't, if they are wealthy people, you can't make them stay, right? Like, even if this failed and they were like, well, you can't. Well, you know, all those people can be like, well, this sucks. We're leaving anyway.
Would you rather them move away, or would you rather them split off and live next door? I think the state would rather they stay in the state. To
the people of Baton Rouge, obviously, it's going to matter. But to the people that, you know, that want to leave, it doesn't matter. You cannot force people to stay. And the more the state tries to, the more it resembles, you know, what you get when the state tries to make people stay in an area. And that has plenty of historical analogs on all kinds of, you know, different degrees, from marginally annoying to, you know, they're going to throw you into, you know, mass graves if you try to leave. Right. So.
All right, I'm gonna hit this week. We go all. Everybody, just take a moment. Let what this dumbass just said sink in. Understand something. In a system based on capitalism, capital is power. Money equals autonomy. When the political, social, legal, economic system reinforce that, then you can use money as force. This is so much why these people are opposed to progress. It's why they're opposed to socialism. It's why they're opposed to any sort of measures that would bring about economic equality. Because they understand that under the current system, they can use their economic autonomy as a threat. What can you do? You can't stop them. They're free, and if they don't like things, they can leave. If they don't like this, and that's why we're in the situation to begin with, right? Because they didn't like the black neighborhoods, so they left the cities. They didn't like the black schools, they sent their kids to private schools. You know, they literally took all the resources out of the city. Now they've sucked the city dry. They're not really getting a return on investment from the city services. Fuck it, we're out. Let's go do our own thing. And they know this. They've always known this. And it does show you where they're really at. They're really at protecting their white supremacy through economic supremacy and making sure that they protect their autonomy at the expense of everybody else's autonomy. And that's their plan. Again, they get to pretend it's about culture. Oh, there's just something about those schools. What is it about those fucking schools? What the fuck do you think is happening? You think a school, because it's predominantly black, and what, probably has black teachers, black faculty, maybe some black administration? What do you think? What do you think? You think we teach mudslinging instead of math? You think we teach kids Ebonics instead of English? You think we teach them African juju instead of chemistry? What tell me? What do you think is going on in these schools? And that's the fucking problem. Again, the town is 56% black people. The school is 80% black people. How the fuck do white people know what's going on in schools? They're not sending their kids to those goddamn schools. And why are these cities struggling with services? Why are they destitute? And this is what I'm saying, like, we don't want to live together. People want to live in nice areas, which end up being all white areas. And they're not motivated to contribute to the common good in diverse communities because they literally see that as giving resources to black people who don't deserve it. Like it's crazy, but this is the mentality, and I don't know what we can do about this. I don't know what we can do. Like that's why we got Trump the first time, and it might be why we get Trump the second time. We can't do anything. If people are just this aggrieved about racial issues, they're ready to start their own cities. They're gonna they how many of them have told us how like they're gonna support Trump no matter what? Like, what do we do? What can we do about it?
I wonder if we'll see more and more of this. Again, I think the scare, you're right. It's happening in Texas. Like I said, the Atlanta one is the one I'm most familiar with. But if you can keep them there by labeling them, racist, if that sort of becomes less,
why would you want to live with racists?
Why would you want to live with racists? They don't even want to be here.
So far, the plan seems to be the latter, Kyle, to grift state and federal funds and also county resources, from what we've heard. But yeah, that is the great irony of these things, is that if they were to do this, they would need to start paying taxes to take care of their stuff. Or they say that they actually did say that they did mention that they were planning to privatize things. So again, they'd have to pay for that. But they will. And it's sort of like Sumami's comment about how research shows that or there's been work done at Rice that shows that a lot of them would rather live in like areas with a high flood risk where they could potentially lose everything rather than live in black or brown neighborhoods. These conservatives who such a great point are always about you don't want they don't want to pay taxes, they don't want to pay for services, and they're going to have to pay out the wazoo for these things. It's also weird too, because if you listen to the way most of them talk, they're actually they're always talk like they're suspicious of the business influences behind the left and the government. They always make it as though there's like a secret cabal and there's this sort of tyranny of the left, and it's because of these powerful business people supporting the woke agenda and all this, and they never realize the irony in the fact that they're the people who are always trying to privatize every goddamn thing.
Let them go. But like, as this logic falls apart, do you think we'll see this more and more in cities that are sort of struggling?
I'm sure this was happening in Baton Rouge, but as cities start to destroy their tax base, they start to expand their boundaries and encroach into suburbs that weren't part of their tax base. So part of it is just like, it's like economic warfare. Like, you're not going to do that to us. We're going to separate from you completely. If they would get their house in order, they wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah.
You've got
this is the interesting question, Carrie Ann, because I don't know. I know that I'm supposed to want us to live together. I'm supposed to want harmony. And but this is why I get sick of sort of the centrist, enlightened centrist, both sides talking points. I think it's so patronizing, because, like I said, it assumes two things. It assumes to know the perspectives of the people invested in the conflict better than they do, and to be so much smarter than the people on either side of the conflict that you figured out how it's just a misunderstanding. In reality, I'm just as sick of them as they are of us. And a lot of the issues that are most important to me become safety issues. And when they're not safety issues, they're matters of improving our material living conditions. That is to say, there's really a lot at stake. And the ways in which they hold us back and do things like I'll give you an example, like COVID. Like I'm in a higher risk category, and I'm just figuring out how maybe in the fall, depending on my employment situation, I may get back to something that looks like a normal life, working outside the home, socializing outside the home. Because just, you've never been able to feel like you were in a community that took people who are at risk and their elevated risk seriously enough to do anything about it. But that's just, that's one issue, and maybe that's more personal, right? But these issues are serious. Like, I'm tired of living in a community, for instance, that accepts these efforts, that accepts efforts of these people to remove Black history from the education system, for instance. That charges every environment. Like, on one hand, we have people who are trying to oppose a genocide. On the other hand, we have people who were saying trying to oppose the genocide is being genocidal. And now you've got to be worried that the system is going to be set up such that you're committing a hate crime by saying I'm not okay supplementing the efforts to drop bombs on people. I mean, at some point, fuck this, right? Like at some point, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm just tired. Like I'm tired of preserving 50% of the airspace for flat earthers. I don't know why. So yeah, there's a now the reality is it's not so simple for marginalized people because we're at the bottom of the social and economic hierarchy. So it ain't gonna be separate but equal. It ain't ever gonna be separate but equal. That, to be honest, that's really why we insist on integration. We insist on integration not because we think y'all fucking love us. We know you fucking hate us. But we insist on integration because if we can somehow tie our interests together enough, then we'll have some livable shit. If our communities are integrated enough, y'all will keep the fucking streets paved so you don't have to fucking drive down fucking potholes to get to fucking Starbucks. And hey, guess what? Turns out we like Starbucks too once in a while. If enough of us go to school together, y'all will make sure we get up-to-date books and a decent fucking gymnasium, and our fucking uniforms don't look like shit. That, you know what I'm saying? So that's a lot of the motivation to stay together. But when we're constantly, it's like being in a relationship. When you're constantly the one who gives and 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 gives, just so you can get a little bit of the benefit of the cooperation, but all the other side does is take and take and take and take and take and take. Eventually you realize, you know what? The benefits of the cooperation have not come, and they don't seem to be headed this way anytime soon. And so, of course, I think what they're doing is fucked up. But yes, there is a part of me, like I said, that you don't need a civil divorce. You don't need a civil war when a civil divorce will do. Bye, Felicia. We have irreconcilable differences. It's not you, it's me. I just think we really ought to see other people. It gets to that point. I don't really know that I want Tim Pools in my neighborhood. If given a choice, like Tim Pool gonna be way over there, and what Tim Pool thinks we should do, and how Tim Pool votes, and how Tim Pool thinks won't have any interference or impact on my situation. Pretty hard to turn down.
State of Jefferson, Greater Idaho.
Yeah.
You've got a county in Colorado trying to secede from the state. This is actually happening all over the country.
There it is.
And when there is no solution to the people who live there, when they're demanding these things, they don't get it, they move. And now we're seeing geographic hyperpolarization, which is really bad. But you know what's going to happen now here in Baton Rouge, St. George? People who can afford to will move into the wealthy, safe, and secure area of St. George, and the poor people will stay behind, and Baton Rouge will start to fall apart.
And 90% of this is, well, no, the two issues, if I understand correctly, the two issues are the schools and also the crime. So like, and there's violence at schools. It really is like, if you have an unsafe area where there's no law, where the law enforcement does not take care of the population, the people with means leave that area. That's
Again, there's the lie. Right there it is. When we're together, when we're talking about a city, see, the assumption is in the city, everybody lives together. And if you don't think that at least everybody lives together, at least you know that that's where disproportionately the Black and brown people are. So then we talk about, well, what goes on in the city? Well, when the law enforcement doesn't keep the crime in the city under control, then we got to go somewhere else and dip. Oh, okay. Well, you're definitely, so can I see the police budget of this new wonderful place you're going to make where I'm sure the police are just keeping crime under control. I'm sure there's just fucking police. I'm sure that place is just swimming with police. You don't have a budget for a police department. Oh, no. Yeah, we'll just call it. Yeah, if something happens, we'll just call it. Yeah, it's going to be fine. It's not going to be a lot of crime. So yo, that's, and we just like, literally, they're like, literally, when the cops don't keep the city under control, we've got to make a new city with no cops. What? That's your brain on conservative thinking. But again, y'all, I'm telling you, that's just how it is in America. And it's how it is pretty much all over the world. It's urban centers where cultures interface with each other. Yes, there's a lot more people there. And I know there's going to be, an increase in incidents and things like that because of not just the sheer numbers, but then also the concentration, right? People are living on top of each other. So like literally there's orders of magnitude more human interactions. Of course, more things are going to go wrong. But scaling for population does not really account for the difference in the culture of policing and how we see the need for law enforcement. And I'm telling you, it just doesn't account for it. It's not about the population size. It's where we come together, where we actually live together. It's when you see how we really feel about each other. And when people are in a community where they feel like they're just around people that are like them, they're in nice communities, safe communities, their feeling and need for law enforcement in their life just falls off. Of course, they still want them there because they have to respond to stuff. The cat gets stuck in the tree, couples fight, youngsters start shit, and like there's noisy neighbors, right? They still know they need people around because they don't actually want to deal with solving their problems themselves. But this fear about crime and I don't want to get shot and I have to live in a constant state of fear and all this, that doesn't happen. And I just want people to understand that that's why, and this has been going on forever, and that's why people read that conservative concern over crime as racism, because you just don't care about crime when we're not around, and you don't care about the actual statistics about who's committing the crime, who's doing the crime to who, and you also don't seem to care about which cultures are actually perpetuating and glorifying gun culture and violence. None of the reality seems to matter.
Just the way it is. If you can get out of it, if it's dangerous, and it's whether it's the same as whether it's people that are leaving a town because they don't like the school, or refugees from a war-torn country. This is what happens when people are unsafe.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The audacity with these conservative trolls who are pro-Israel, which, yes, that just means pro-genocide right now. I'm sorry, but it's just one of those things where when we retrospect in history, just like you guys do with MLK, you hated him at the time, but now you can't stop quoting him. You guys are going to pretend you were on the right side of history with this one. But just the audacity to go and say like, oh, well, if you can't keep the people in, and again, remember, it's that economic threat, right? The audacity to really threaten, oh, well, you can't keep the people in, that's gonna, right? And then basically comparing it to like a concentration camp or whatever, knowing he's speaking from the perspective of people who actually are never subject to that type of real control and violence. And his whole point is that they have the economic ability to have real autonomy in this world and get where they want and do what they want. But he's going to compare it to that, knowing right now that this country and likely every single candidate, and not just candidate, but all the way down to content creator that he supports, is actually like conducting such an operation right now, where fuck it, we don't even bother with the mass graves. We just literally blow the buildings up and the people will be trapped there inside forever, until you guys bulldoze the whole thing, so you can make shopping malls. Which, who still goes to fucking shopping malls? But guarantee you, y'all about to build some brand new fucking shopping malls, the fucking way of the future.
And they can leave, they get the hell out of Dodge. So this is not some kind of shock, and you're only going to see it. The actual solution is to get competent governance.
Yeah, you can't really hold order-minded people hostage by saying you have to stay here where there's chaos. They're not going to do it. They're going to follow their principles and their values, and they want structure, order, and safety.
I wonder if there's actually any kind of solution to the issue of self-segregation, because what I see from this is, if you don't allow a city like St. George, as we're all mentioning, people move, right? Yeah, well, these wealthy white people are going to go move into wealthy white neighborhoods. They're not going to decide to go move into like central Chicago. None of these wealthy families are going to be like, I know, 45th and the Red Line sounds good. They're not going to do it. They're not going to want to go there. So all that's going to keep happening is more and more self-segregation. But the thing is, I learned this growing up in Chicago. All of the races self-segregate by choice. No one forced them to do it. In the early days, there was something called redlining, which is where the real estate companies would intentionally push black families towards red line housing. They're like, we want to make them all go there because it's a racist housing market. They're concerned about the property values if black families move into white areas or close to them. So they wanted to control it. That gets made illegal. Guess what happens? Nothing changes. The Hispanic people start moving near Hispanic people. The white people move near white people, and the black people move to live in black communities. Now you've got St. George, but if they were forced to leave, none of those people are going to move to a Mexican neighborhood or a Honduran neighborhood. None of them are going to move to a black neighborhood. I mean, very rarely. Some may, but for the most part, they don't do it. People just segregate based on race. That I don't know what the proposed leftist solution to that is when people choose to do it.
Sometimes leftists.
Okay, all right. So there's a lot here. There's a lot here. All right, so everybody snaps and clip ready and timestamp and writes it down, take notes, all that good stuff, because I'm about to say some crazy shit. Let's talk about how Tim Pool's right, and boy, are we gonna do that briefly. So I'm gonna just say there's a way that when I think about these issues from a sociological perspective, one of the things I learned about was the idea of homosocial reproduction. And homosocial reproduction is the idea of simply like people like to be around people that are like them. And I used to say when it comes to these things, homosocial reproduction can be more powerful than like outgroup exclusion. So basically the idea that there's a lot to that. There's a very serious way in which people just like to be around people like them. Um, that's not an invalid line of reasoning. Um, all right, that was tough. That was very difficult. Definitely never gonna want to watch that back. All right, so but um so yeah, like that's a thing. But we have to talk about again the system that we live in, and it puts a different flavor on things. First off, you have to understand that we have a system that's been colonialist, and it's you know our this nation's right is it was built to generate white economic power, especially to concentrate that economic power in white men to the expense of anybody else. And particularly necessitating the displacement and genocide of Native Americans to secure the land, and the enslavement and oppression of African Americans, to get the labor. And over time, also the plenty of discrimination and marginalization of anybody who was non-white or non-male and non-straight, um, not well off, and all of these things. Um, so when white people isolate themselves, it's not that it's a problem for them to want to live around people that are like them. It's a problem of the systematic deprivation of resources from marginalized communities. And you just have to try to, one, understand that, and two, care about it. Like, right? Because that's how you start the conversation in good faith, right? That's like literally me being like super charitable to the other side, because I think it like it's important. And if you just sweep it aside, then they're always gonna have this thing where like you're acting like you don't understand how communities, of particular cultures tend to form with each other. You also have to understand that because of those issues, and they happen in other community contexts too. Like, it's not always, white people in their tensions with black people, like I talked about earlier in the Ironbound. Like, there's a lot of Portuguese and Brazilian people, and there's a lot of, cultural conflict there. Again, I love it. As somebody who's not Portuguese or Brazilian, like, living in the Ironbound was one of the dopest times of my life. I love that place. I miss it. Both cultures being there so authentically was just fucking dope. Like, just, it was a super cool thing to experience. Just getting to know so many people from those backgrounds I would have never met, like the customs, the foods, the just yeah, just man, I feel like my life was so enriched, right, by knowing people. But it happens in even like Newark's a great example because you have that in the East Ward, and then you have like a lot of Black communities live in the South Ward. If you go to like the North Ward, there's a lot of Italian communities. I used to call it Little Italy. You know, some a lot of like that Sopranos shit, right? It's Newark. So like you got to understand too, for these communities, especially non-white communities, many times you're talking about them, you know, coming from different parts of the world, and just as a matter of necessity, because they were not one, they couldn't have full participation in the wider, again, predominantly white dominated society. And then, you know, just not just who did they know, needing family, needing support, stuff like that, needing you know, to be around their community and their culture and things like that. So it's like a matter of safety or a matter of necessity, right? Um, the other thing that goes overlooked in that is we're not necessarily concerned about communities in a strict way of composition. So what I mean by that is I don't think most people think it's really a problem if you have neighborhoods that reflect particular cultures. We understand that people are going to live with people they can relate to. The problem is when there's inequality in our access to resources, in our shared resources, in the way our communities are treated, and then also what happens when our communities are interfacing. And then I think they're also overlooking the fact that a lot of us actually really do value diversity. And for a lot of people, that's an incredibly motivating factor. That's something people find incredibly important in their lives. Matter of fact, that's why a lot of people move back to cities, is because in the city, you can take a car, you can take public transportation, and within a few minutes, you can experience a lot of different cultures from out the world. And you can't really do that if you live in the suburbs or in the sticks. Um, a lot of people, you know, they would move to communities because of how diverse they are, or they want to live in a building with, you know, people from lots of different communities in there. So yeah, that, you know, definitely, but it is a thing that happens. And also yeah, so like I don't know, that's like kind of my thoughts about that. Like it means something different when white people segregate themselves. And we don't say that to pick on them. We say that because that's the reality of the situation. We understand that marginalized communities need their own spaces, and they need to be around, you know, their people, but that doesn't make it okay for white people to then say we want to build segregated communities. And to address this seriously, I also want to say that this is the type of well poisoning that makes it almost impossible to deal with these people. Because anytime an issue comes up and you discuss what is part of the response to marginalization, what's part of the treatment of our social ills, what's part of the plan for progress, it is turned and weaponized against you every single time. And I feel that so much in this current moment and what we're dealing with in our environment, especially our political environment in America right now in 2024, this year in particular. Because with what's going on right now, the other side has effectively used our language and the way we highlight certain issues. They've used it against us, which has just heightened the way everything becomes politically charged. And it's actually made it, I feel, decidedly less safe to speak out as a marginalized person about issues of marginalization. The current climate has had, ironically, they feel the same way, the opposite of the intended effect. I feel way less safe talking about things recently. Way less safe.
Propose segregating based on race. Like, I can't remember which school, but there was a college recently where the student, the African American student community was saying, well, we want our own dorm. We don't want to have to live with anyone else. Like, so is that racist, or are we cool with that one? Like, what are we doing here, team?
The left likes it.
Yeah,
when they call for it, it's okay. But if you were to be like, hey, I'm not saying it's a race thing, but I don't want to live in a place where I'm scared to send my kids to school because they're going to get beat up and there's all kind of stuff, then you're racist.
To be fair, the left has no real morals and no real ideology. The best example being Lance from the Surfs on this show arguing that if a man is attracted to a manly woman, he's gay, but then tweeting out that men being attracted to manly women is straight, because it's literally flavor of the month for these people. They have no ideas behind anything they're saying.
For people that are making...
All right. I just wanted to point out again to all my liberal friends, they hate you. They hate you. And they're really pissed. Honestly, they're really pissed that you're still white. Like, they really wish they could revoke your white card. Since they can't, they're going to remind you that you're evil, that you have no morals, that you're dumb, you're misguided, you don't even know what a man or a woman is, you can't even, what's straight, you don't even know, you're stupid, you don't know anything. You literally, you're why? Because then you're less than human. And when you're less than human, you can be disregarded over there with the disregardables. Okay? I just want to remind you that they hate you. They hate you. I gotta throw it out there once in a while, because I know y'all be like, we are the world, we are the children, we're all gonna hold hands, and there's like the blue coast and the red coast, and the sun is just setting in the background, kind of like my background, but there's a bridge, and we're all just gonna hold hands, and we're gonna walk, and we're gonna meet in the middle of the bridge, and it's just gonna be, it's not happening, dog. It's not happening. Not because I don't want it to happen, but because they don't like you enough. They don't like you. They don't like you. They don't want to compromise with you. They don't want to hold hands with you. They don't want to if it was me, it'd be different, but I'm just trying to keep it real with you. They don't like you, dog.
The argument that you were referring to, it's just a vector of attack. So that's why like Jordan Peterson was referred to it as postmodern, because it doesn't actually matter like to them. It's just that this is an attack that will convince people watching, and it's a vector of attack that will work. And so they don't really believe it. Like Tim says, it's not like they have any belief in it. What they actually believe is that words have power, and that's the postmodern thing. So they use use, you know, race as an effective tool. It's nothing more than an effective tool. That's why it's conditional, and it's different depending on who's using it and stuff like that, because it's all that postmodern garbage.
It's also
okay. We interrupt our regularly scheduled program to bring you late breaking news of a tragedy. I'm gonna have to kind of disagree with. I'm gonna have to kind of agree with these assholes again. I hate to do it. I can't believe I'm agree with these fools twice in one show. But look, a lot of what we're talking about is a liberal problem. Again, like a lot of that segregation, right? A lot of that 75% of white people don't have a friend of color. That ain't just conservatives, right? It isn't just conservatives who play the whole nice neighborhood thing. You know, like that a lot of that stuff is definitely a problem with liberals too. As is sort of that sort of performative use of these issues to garner support, which makes people feel used, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that feels like socially people wanting a certain social value that comes from allyship with particular communities, but don't really care about what's going on with the communities or even listen to them. From a political side of things, there's a lot of times it feels like they're drumming up support for their particular side or their particular candidates, right? There's a lot of stuff now where I even play into something. I tell people like, yo, like we gotta push it on now. Like we have to make demands now. You have to step your game up and get on top of politicians now, right? Because we're going into an election year. And if you don't do it now, you're never going to have more leverage. You have the most leverage in the way it is the system works now when they need your vote. But that does end up feeling like, again, like they don't really care. It's just about being on the wrong side, the right side, or having the right opinion. And then, you know, there's a lot of that issue, like, because we have a weird time that we live in, because there's a lot of stuff that is, you know, performative or shallow, but there's another way in which, to me, it just reflects the times we live in. Like myself, like I'm a content creator, and I accept that because I have a YouTube channel, and so I know that means I can't say I'm not a content creator. But being a content creator is not really, like, I don't really see I don't, you know, I don't, obviously if this was something I was doing for a living or was like, you know, my profession, I take a very different approach to my channel, I'll put it that way, right? But for me, it's a part of my social life. Like I made friends on YouTube. It's weird. I know people don't understand that, but you know, eventually like I have a conversation with people and I'm like, yeah, there's this whole thing, you know, you can actually make a lot of friends on YouTube. So, you know, and so I'm not trying to be self-centered so much. I'm just trying to be honest in my own way and recognizing that I have this thing I do that's this balance between you know, you have the channel and you're trying to get subs, you're trying to get a following, you're trying to get clicks, you're trying to get views, and this other thing that's like, you know, this is kind of just how I live, and Like literally, that's how my life feels. Like I'm not even happy about it necessarily. Like there's times today I'm like working and I'm like, damn, like after work, I'm just gonna play Pinochle and watch basketball. And then like I'll see something like, or somebody will send me something in this case. But a lot of times it's like, I see something or whatever, and it's like, oh my God, like I really am like having thoughts about this, and I feel like this is like an important thing, what's going on, and I want to talk to my friends about it. And so you go live, between that and like, hanging out and talking to people about shit and gather. So I know that for other people that like, for instance, like when you see kids at a protest and they're posting about it or they're sharing it on social media, like, yes, that does make it seem performative to us, right? But there's also a way that that's how they socialize and that's how they share with their world what they're doing or what's important to them. And that can get frustrating. Yeah, I just think that's all right, cool. That's 2 concessions.
But like this is a microcosm of
feeling like a nice guy
our
today.
2 different philosophies, if I'm grossly generalizing. One is centralization of power and one size fits all, and we're going to run the city the way that the ruling party believes in. And I think our side believes in localism. Like if everybody in the Mexican American community wants to self-gather in that community, I think that's great. But maybe they want to mix it up. Like, how do we know what a robust culture looks like unless we let people to be free enough to decide for themselves? What do they value most? Do they value being with people that look and sound like them? Or do they value diversity? Or do they just value a reasonable tax code that doesn't totally screw you?
Right.
All right. So I'll let them go. When we kind of just talked about this, but something that I want to highlight here is he gets to this thing, right? It's with this thing, they want to centralize power and kind of make it a one size fits all thing for everybody. Like, and again, like that's the gaslighting. These are the people, like I can't take any of these people seriously because we know these are the right wingers. We know they all support Trump and the MAGA morons. We know they support the candidate who literally said he's going to be a dictator on day one as the president of the United States of America. The president of the United States of America. He actually is a former president that said that. It's terrible. It's terrible. So how can we believe them? And again, then think about what we just talked about. Here's their thing. They believe in locality. Yeah, you believe in locality when it means we as white people have a right to make our own segregated city by seceding from the current city. But you don't believe in locality when you put majority white county structures in place to rule over predominantly black cities. You don't believe in locality when you put state governance over local governance, which, where do y'all do that typically? Oh yeah, in black cities. So this is how the game works, y'all. This is how the game works. And this is why you got, again, I'm gonna start talking to these liberals. We're gonna have to start getting at these liberals because it's y'all we really trying to holler at. Because when they start talking about locality and differences in governance and we don't believe in centrality, all black folks here, we're like racism, 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 racism. You hate black people, what? That's what we hear. But the distraction is to make y'all think that it's really oh, it's what about the regulations and then what about the municipal services? And no, it's really about the schools, but we're concerned about crime, but we want to protect our culture and our way of life, but you just, oh, well, I don't want to be subject to violence. I want to make sure my trash is picked up, like, right? And like and then what you do as the good liberal Samaritan is you tackle all of those issues. You try to appease all of their concerns. None of those were ever the concerns. The concerns have always been, are now, and will always be, they ain't messing with black people. Now, again, I would love to be wrong about that. I would love to be wrong about that. But I need to see that I'm wrong about that, because that is the unflinching all-time champion of America. Bet on racism for the win. If you like your money, bet on racism. I promise you. So this is the issue. And again, to the people that are in the middle, what are you talking about? What are you doing? Stop faking the funk. Because we cannot seriously come to agreement and compromise with people who are this openly hypocritical. Again, I believe in locality when it means we can split off this little segregated white neighborhood over here. We should have all the autonomy and freedom and self-governance we want, and can't nobody tell me different. Matter of fact, the first vote tried to tell us difference. We made it even whiter and got that bitch through on round 2, because perseverance pays. But again, when it comes to a black-run city, oh, all of a sudden that locality stuff is out the window. All of a sudden self-governance is not even an issue, okay? And again, here's the thing. When you try to explain to people what solidarity is about, when you try to explain to people why people need to be around their people, why being around people like them might be important to their health and well-being, all of a sudden, again, do they say, oh, well, now I understand, and now I realize that it's important that we support those communities and make sure they're not economically impoverished. No, they're just saying, oh, wait, so it's okay to segregate, right? Oh, so you said it's cool to segregate, right? All right, we can make an all-white town now, right? What'd you say? There's a BET. We can make a WET, right? What? FUBU, for us, by us. We can make some white people shit now, right? Like, why maybe you don't show them your playbook.
And I think we talk about this a lot, but I think one of the biggest challenges facing America right now is that we don't have a collective understanding of what our values are and what our culture is supposed to be. And so that's why I love regional culture in America. I think it's really interesting that in Louisiana, there's a big Cajun influence. It's just different language, and I would want to preserve those things. But overarching, do we understand what it means to be American as opposed to these regional enclaves? Or, if you're living within an immigrant community that's settled in a specific area, would you be able to both have your, ethnic culture and as well as be able to say, like, but being American means this. These are the values that we all agree we want to preserve.
Well, we did have a system that allowed for individuality and local culture and a common sense of American identity. I think, going back to centralization, intersectionality is a central plan, and it ranks everybody based on somebody's preferences. And it is so fundamentally un-American that it pushes us away from each other. It creates all of these divisions and this distrust amongst different types of Americans. And I think that's what's tearing us apart.
Yeah. I think intersectionality, I mean, this was the big buzzword I remember when I was going through college, like, how great is intersectionality? And as you're describing it, I'm like, this sounds awful. This sounds terrible. But it is, again, this idea that, we could have a moral and cultural understanding of what order should look like, but there's the opposite side, which says, no, we want to be able to change, to continuously rotate the deck as we see fit. And we don't want you to be able to complain about it without being labeled with an ism, so to speak.
Yes.
Thank you so much for agreeing with me.
Affirmation for Hannah Claire.
Thank you. I need that because I'm female and also I'm a middle child. So it's really important to my ego.
Middle child will do that.
Awful,
Are you middle?
awful intersectionality joke. Notice how literally, like, it's just back to that old trope. Oh, there's actually an order to things, and there should be an order to things, and an order again. Order becomes a code word. We know what order means. Again, it's and again, it is the isms, right? And so my enemies are worth my time because they're effective and smart enough at what they're doing that they need to be taken seriously. And so you see this idea that there really is an order, and they code that as that's what's good, that's what's natural, that's what's right. But again, the woke left, they want to shuffle the deck. And rather than some positive imagery of mixing, right? It's like, no, they want to shuffle the deck and literally to say that that's out of order, right? They want to throw the system into chaos. And so they reveal in sometimes even just the word choices or the turns of phrase that somebody uses. You word like they said, words have power, and you can see a lot of what they're thinking by the words they choose. I also want to talk about economic justice. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, justice, right? We got to remember they see part of, like, you know, they're always trying to use our shit against us and misrepresented in the process. So now they're constantly trying to do the L, the G, the B, and they're trying to cut out the T. And nope, we're not going to stand for that shit. People are now trying to be all anti-woke, and they're trying to talk shit about the D, the E, and the I, but they're leaving out the J. And nope, we ain't leaving out the T, we ain't leaving out the J. When you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, ultimately it's really supposed to be about justice. And the J is about recognizing that. And when you have a system that, again, is based on capitalism, and cash equals power, where money equals autonomy, you can't create a more equitable society without addressing the economic disparities. You just can't. And I think that that's almost like the elephant in the room when we talk about diversity issues. I say that because so many of the policies fail to address economic inequalities. And so little of the conversation even focuses on economic inequalities. And I think that in many ways, it's obviously a much bigger thing to tackle, but I think it's, in a sense, it's almost like people have conceded that that we're just not there. They treat it like that's just a bridge too far, like that's just asking for too much. You got to understand, that's just asking to get started. Right? Think about like a lawsuit. Let's try to keep it something simple, like, you know, I took something from you, like I stole your gaming console or whatever, right? And, you know, whatever, eventually found out whatever, you sued me for it. Now, let's just keep it real. You want the money back, or the item back, or whatever, right? And then a lot of times you want compensation for um the loss of it, like the lost use, right? You want compensation for the loss of that, like the time you couldn't use it or whatever, right? Then you probably want some like shit for like pain and suffering, right? And you're gonna talk about how, like, PlayStation is your comfort animal, and it was like emotionally distressing to you, and you had to get psychiatric treatment, and your girlfriend dumped you because you was wigging out because you couldn't play the game, and like you just going right, and then all of a sudden there's a little $500 PlayStation, but you sitting up in the court talking about all your pain and suffering and economic loss, and you got fired because you couldn't play PlayStation, and you you're right, like I'm serious, like, and stop, gang, I'm dying if I'm lying, like that's how lawsuits work. Then you want your legal fees, all the effort you had to go through to find it, the private investigator you had to hire to get like this. That's how a lawsuit works. So I just want it on the record that when you talk about identifying whatever the economic number or the value or the reparations itself, the actual, which is, and we all know it's a number you can't fucking calculate, but let's just pretend it's a number you could calculate. I just want people to understand that's the beginnings. That's the value of the fucking thing we're talking about here. That's not going to be the full measure of the making it right. So, but without even doing that, like we can't pretend that we're actually making it right. And what happens is a lot of things, they end up symbolic, they end up ceremonial, they end up being very superficial. They end up essentially centering around awareness and education and like of other people, like, and all this stuff, and then when the rubber meets the road, you don't see the action. But here's two things that it does that are important. Number one, it counteracts people's ability to segregate like this. See, one of the things that should be really highlighted in this story that is almost unfortunate, because it is about race and it should be about race, but the racial headline will sort of bury the lead of the significance of the economics, the ability, and there's kind of two things here, and they talked about it a little bit, and I didn't highlight it, so let's highlight it now. Again, how do I have a genuine conversation with a motherfucker like Tim Pool, who's going to sit up here and give people a history lesson about redlining with, of course, the obvious subtext of redlining is racist and redlining is bad. And then again, this motherfucker is on Team Trump. Donald Trump is a redliner. Like, I think he actually looked like what in the red pen, right? Put C on a goddamn app, and that meant it was colored people, and make sure they don't go into the good housing for white folks. Bruh. Bruh, y'all mans over there on the right, your mans in them, yeah, he's actually a redliner. Like, no, like that's how he gets down. Like that was his MO. You can't don't come out and have me talking about that redlining, bro. Like, just don't. Really, really don't. And so, but if people have what's really going on in the story, like I said, it buries the important subtext of the economics, is their ability, and that is part of history, their ability to segregate based on economics. And in a sense, it's another concession I hate to make, but it's sort of like the proving of the Southern strategy, right? It's the economic version of don't you can't say the N-word anymore, right? So talk about welfare queens and da 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 da, right? And that's kind of the thing. Like, yo, like, oh, like Trump, that's crude. You can't You can't be. You don't have to put C on the application anymore. Yeah, you just raise the rent above. You just pop the rent above a certain level, and look here, right? That's and that works. And that is combined with sort of what I think of as like a post-Reconstruction segregation. The realization that there was this grand insecurity, I would call it, about what was going to happen if, like, the civil rights movement and all that, what if they really did try to create an integrated society? Like, what if they really did away with segregation and you couldn't just discriminate against Black people and, all of that type of shit? Like, what was going to happen? And I think over time, people realized it's all right because it's all white. Because again, we've set up the economic system such that at certain levels, there's nothing legal or official or on paper excluding marginalized people from being in this club. Just ain't a whole lot of them here. And you don't have to make laws that say Black people can't live around us and Black people can't go to our schools and Black people can't get hired at our job, because we just don't want to live around them anyway. So we'll just go live and work and play where there are no Black people, and it'll be just fine. We don't need any of that. We don't need any of that. As long as you got enough capital, as long as you got enough economic autonomy. Oh, look, you could just find yourself, you could be one of these 75% of white folks that don't even have a friend that's not colored. And that's the thing that we have to deal with. That's what we got to deal with. And so let me be clear about that again. The first thing that comes from really dealing with economic justice is you break their ability to economically segregate. Because you say, oh, you're going to move out in the so and so. Yeah, well, we can move out there too. End of that. And it can't just be for the talented 10th, the lucky ones, the four, right? Because another thing that you got to understand is that's part of equality. Part of equality is, for the most part, you have never had to be exceptional and be white to be okay. You could just be good. You could just do what you got to do, right? And so it can't just be the exceptional ones, because that's not changing the system. All right. The other thing it does is it actually does the heavy lifting of balancing out the economic viability of our communities. All of a sudden, communities of color, diverse communities, white communities, rural communities, right? Everybody's getting a good piece. The one good thing about our system is we've concentrated a lot of power and a lot of resources in our federal government and in the various states. So if you switch to something where school funding was even something like county based, or just every district in the state was getting the same amount or whatever, a lot of these problems would kind of take care of them. Not take care of, I don't want to say take care of themselves, because we have a lot to do in terms of our personal individual contributions and what we need to do socially. But a lot of the systematic things, we would get a lot of leverage going for us. It would definitely help us move things in the right direction. So it's literally a win-win. And there's another thing about it that's so important. And you could think of it as sort of an economic conversation about main character syndrome. There comes a time when supporting and being there for marginalized people means doing what they need you to do, doing what is actually in their best interest and what will help them. It isn't always about increasing the awareness or educating their opponents or the people who frustrate them. That's an important part of it. I don't want to neglect that. That's important work. I think that's large part of the motivation people, make content about these things. I don't want to undermine that at all. But the way I think of it is, and I'm gonna just talk about race in this case. Sometimes being anti-racism means doing what's best for people of color. You don't necessarily need to focus always on convincing other people to not be racist, right? And I think of it as like direct action. I think sometimes we focus on the indirect. Like if we could get more people on our side, if we could educate more people, if we could make more awareness, we'll make our path easier, right? We'll get a lot more momentum. And that's why it's super important, right? But we also got to remember the direct action, like literally going about the business of creating the more just world, the more equitable society. And we have to be serious about what it requires of us economically, because money makes the world go around, unfortunately, in this capitalist world in which we live. But yeah, that's for me. That's my take on this. Again, I want to thank Pragmatic Crystal for putting this on my radar. I do think it's a crazy story, so I hope more people talk about it, and we'll see what happens. Um, uh, I also do think that I agree with their assessment that this is something we're going to see more of. Like these type of communities trying to split off and become their own cities or make new counties, or it sort of depends on what level we're looking at. But I do think we'll see more of this, especially given that this one's been given the green light to go through. Maybe some of that will depend on how much they get their shit together and what this venture looks like. But you put this together with the sovereign citizen movement and stuff like that, we're definitely going to see more of this. But thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it. Of course, I'll be hanging out and Gather. There's links in the descriptions if you want to support the channel. Please do smash the like button on the way out. Leave me a comment if you're watching later. Otherwise, we'll see you next